Okay, sure. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today. I would like to first welcome you to Barbary's SQE2 Prep webinar. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day, and I hope you'll find this very informative. I would just like to start with some housekeeping. So if anybody has any questions along the way, please add it to the chat box. I've got one of my colleagues here with me, Alumni, who will be answering any of your questions. And also towards the end of our webinar today, there will be a Q&A session where we'll pick up any other leftover questions and delve into some questions that you have a bit deeper as well. First off, I would like to introduce our panel today. So as I mentioned, we've got Halamat, who is one of our sales executives here at Barbary, operating the chat function. We've also got Megan, who is our student services manager, as well as Joanne, who is our senior tutor. And they'll be popping in and out throughout the webinar today as well. So if we get started with our first poll. So I'm just going to ask everybody, have you prepared with Barbary before, especially for your SQE1? So has anybody prepared with us before? I'll just give everybody a moment. Okay, has everybody had a chance to answer and address that? Okay, thank you very much. So what is SQE2? So the key reason why you're here today is to find out more about SQE2, and I want to enlighten you more about the examination. So with the SQE2, there is 6 legal skills that are examined. So that's client interview, advocacy, case and matter analysis, legal writing, legal drafting, and legal research. Those 6 skills are then examined on the basis of 5 legal practice areas, which are criminal litigation, dispute resolution, property and practice, wills and probate administration, business organizational rules and procedures. So the SQE2 exams are held over 5 days. It's 5 half-day examinations. And over those 5 days, you'll cover 16 assessments. That's 4 oral assessments and 12 written assessments. And that will total 14 hours of examinations over those 5 days. And throughout all assessments, there is a theme of ethics that travels throughout all and is examinable as well. So it is important to bear that in mind. So the cost of SQE2 exam itself is £2,493. And how does Barbary prepare you for this? So Barbary's SQE2 Prep course covers all of the activities on your screen, but I'll take you through it one by one. So firstly, you'll start off with lectures. Those are skills-based lectures, which focuses on the skill itself, so the exam criteria, as well as how best to approach that skill. And it will really lay a foundation as to what the skill is and how to actually demonstrate that to your examiner. And then that will be accompanied by reading. That will be reading from your workbooks that accompany and complement your lectures. In addition to that, we have what we call scaffolding activities, and those are interactive activities. And those are there to bridge the gap between the knowledge, so the legal knowledge that you've covered on maybe your SQE1, or if you haven't covered SQE1, a legal knowledge that you've covered on your journeys to SQE2. So that's the 5 legal practice areas that I previously mentioned. And those interactive activities will take you through step by step of how to formulate your answers, those skills answers. Following that, you'll have self-practice activities that you can test yourself on. You'll have exemplar answers as you go through to make sure that you're on the right lines. And in addition to that, you can submit it for peer review. So as others on your course can review your work, and that will give you more of an in-depth understanding of the exam criteria as you match other people's work to it and other colleagues' work to it on your course. In addition to that, you have live workshops, and that's where you can discuss those self-practice activities with your tutors and mentors and others on your course as well. Along with that, you have strategy workshops, and that's to specifically look at any concerns or questions that you may have about approaching the exam, how best to deal with that. Following that, you'll receive practice feedback activities. And that's where you'll receive feedback directly from your tutor about the work. You'll have specific deadlines. So across the course, you'll cover 3 oral practice feedback activities, as well as 5 written submissions. And for written submissions, you'll receive feedback on that 72 hours after the submission date. And that will be your tutor looking directly at the work that you've done on those specific skills and giving you direct feedback on it. So it's personalized to you and your work. Following that, towards the end of your course, you'll have a mock exams, and you'll have a mock exam in each skill that's examinable. So that's 6 mock exams in total. And following that, you'll have a one-to-one tutor call with your mentor who will look at your work and will give you feedback on that. So you'll be able to discuss it. If you think there's maybe a part of your answer that wasn't necessarily mentioned, you'll be able to discuss why that wasn't included or why that hasn't been addressed, so you can really understand what the examiner's looking for. And then why Barbary? Because in many of these features you may think other providers offer as well, but why Barbary specifically? So Barbary, across the April 2022 sit-in, we had 239 students sit with us, compared to 726 students who sat the exam overall. So that's 1 in 3 sitters were Barbary students. And we received an 83% pass rate from those who reported their pass to us, compared to a 77% pass rate overall, which indeed I must say we are quite proud of. Across that, there was 80% of students who identified as Asian or Asian British who passed with Barbary, compared to 72% overall. And those identifying as Black African, Caribbean, or Black British received 64% pass rate compared to the average of 53%. And then along the side, you can also see a breakdown of students who progress from SQE1 to SQE2 with us, along with paralegals and foreign qualified lawyers who then studied with us as well. So our courses do provide flexibility and adaptability to your schedule and to what you're looking for within your SQE2 Prep course to effectively prepare you and provide guidance for the SQE2 exam. I would like to call on Megan just to help us discuss the funding options that's available for our SQE2 Prep course.
Hi everyone, thank you. So I'm going to talk you through enrolment and funding support that we have available. So we'll get started first of all on course options. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. You'll see that we do have 2 different course lengths. We have the 20-week course and the 10-week course. Our next upcoming course is a 20-week course, which begins next Monday, so the 13th of March, and that's preparing students for the July 2023 exam. Okay, and the enrolment deadline for that is the 24th of March. We do have a strict enrolment deadline on this on these preparation courses, because like Sasha Gay said, all that intense and one-to-one support that you get from tutors, you don't want to be missing out on that. So you need to get enrolled as close to the start date as possible. So 20-week prep courses, they work best for SQE1 alumni students, LPC graduates, and those who just want a bit more flexibility in their study time. So although is a bit more of a flexible course. Still does require a minimum of 10 to 15 hours of study per week. And you must commit that time to it because there is a lot to cover in that short period of time. So a 10-week course is a bit more accelerated. It does cover all the same topics, all the same work that a 20-week course does. However, it's just in a shorter period. So therefore, you have to allow a minimum of 15 to 20 hours a week to get through all of that study time. So this is really aimed at candidates who can study full time, and we wouldn't really recommend it for people who have not yet sat at SQE1. So if you're exempt from SQE1 and you haven't studied with Barbary. Yeah, so our next 10-week course will begin on Monday, the 16th of October, as you can see there, and that would be preparing students for the January 2024 exam. So funding and payment plans, if we can move on to the next slide. First of all, you want to know about our course fees. So Ashley there covered the SQE2 exam fees. So just remember that Barbary Prep is separate to the exam fees, so you do have to pay them both, different providers. So our SQE2 Prep is priced at £3,499. If you are an SQE1 Barbary alumni, you do receive a £500 discount. So your course will be priced at £2,999, which you can see there. If you are entitled to that discount, you are an SQE1 alumni on this call, then you will have already received the coupon codes to allow you to enroll at the discounted course price via email over the past few weeks. If not, please feel free to reach out to any of us on this call or our sales or student services team, and we can provide those codes to you. So we do have payment plans, which we offer for all students. So you can see there the 20-week course where you can pay in up to 4 installments, and the 10-week course you can pay in up to 2 installments. So the first installment of your payment plan is due on the first of the month that your course commences. So if you are preparing, you want to join this 20-week course, which starts next week, the first installment will have already been taken from your account on the 1st of March. So if you've missed that, that's okay. You can still join a payment plan, but it would just be in the reduced amount now of 3 installments rather than 4. And when you do come to enroll, there would be an enrollment deposit of £199, and then the remaining balance would be split into those installments. If you do want to pay on a payment plan, a £99 admin fee is added to the overall balance as well. So that's just something to consider. Okay, so if paying in full isn't an option for you, or the payment plans aren't necessarily suitable, or you want a little bit more support not only with your course fees, but with the exam fees, which you have to pay to the SRA and CAB plan, we do have a payment partner called NOMA. And with NOMA, you can study now and pay later, and you can spread the cost up to 12 months. So you can choose, like I say, to take out a loan for the full course fees, just the Barbary Prep fees, or for the full course fees and the exam fees. And what happens there is NOMA pays Barbary those fees, and we will provide you with an exam voucher, which you can use with the SRA and CAP plan to book your exam. We can't provide you with much more detail in regards to NOMA as it is a financial partner. So you're best going through them. The direct link is on our website, and they'll be able to tell you if you're eligible or not for that loan. So we do recommend you take a look there. Okay, so just a couple more questions. Frequently asked questions that we get either from Barbary alumni or for students that are wanting to go direct onto our SQE2 courses. First of all, you might have just sat the SQE1 January 23 exam. If you have, well done for getting through that first step, but you won't know your results yet. Your results aren't coming out until next Tuesday, and our course starts on Monday. So what do? You can still join now. You can prepare with Barbary, you can join our SQE2 course. However, just be aware there is a £999 transfer fee if you aren't successful in your SQE1 and you've already commenced your SQE2 prep. So just bear that in mind if you want to sign up early. But like I said earlier, the enrollment deadline for the SQE2 prep is the 24th of March. So there is still time once you get your results to sign up and join the SQE2 prep. So Barbary guarantee, what is a Barbary guarantee? If you're not successful in your first time you sit in the SQE2 after studying with Barbary, you are entitled to a full free course, again, for Barbary SQE2 Prep, excuse me. However, you will have to have sat at least 70% of the PFAs, so they're the practice feedback assessments that Sasha gave us covering earlier, and attended your tutor calls as well as the full mock exam. So by doing all of that, we believe that you would have a very successful chance of passing your SQE2, and therefore we would provide you with that Barbary guarantee if you've done all of those points but not successful. So that's a bit about enrollment, funding, and just a few frequently asked questions for the student services team. So I'm going to now pass you back to Sasha Go.
Thank you, Megan. So we've got another poll just to keep everybody engaged. So which SQE2 exam would you be planning to prepare for? Is that the July 2023, October 2023, January 2024, April 2024, or you may be unsure? I'll just give you all a moment to select those. Great, thank you everyone. So next I would like to invite Joanne just to speak a bit more about her role as a senior tutor on the SQE2 Prep course.
Great, thank you. So just to introduce myself again, I'm Joanne White. I'm a senior tutor here with Barbary. And I just wanted to spend a few minutes giving you a little bit of an insight into how the tutor role differs on SQE2, which will be particularly helpful for anyone who's studied with SQE1 with Barbary. And the main difference really in terms of the tutor role is that in SQE2, we don't have those one-to-one meetings with students, apart from, as you've already heard, after the mock exam. The reason for this is because SQE2 is a skills-based course, and so it's more effective for tutors to provide support and guidance in small groups rather than on an individual basis. And that makes it easier for students to be able to share their experiences and give each other tips on how to get better as the course goes on. It's also the reason why we have the peer-to-peer reviews on SQE2, which is where, as again you've heard before, you can submit your work to be reviewed by your fellow students and where you can review their work. Now, a lot of people say, well, why does this help me? Well, it helps because it's often easier to spot errors in other people's work rather than your own. But in spotting those mistakes, you can benefit when it comes to producing your own work in future assessments. So in terms of the tutor calls, you will have 4 tutor calls in total throughout the course. The first 3 will be held within your group, which will be a small group of up to about 20 students, but often it's a lot less than that. And those sessions will last about an hour and a half. They'll be tutor-led, but they are hugely interactive and provide you with the opportunity to speak to your fellow students, learn from your fellow students, and share your experiences as well. You've also within the hour and a half got your access to their personal tutor, so you can ask them any questions, clarify any issues that may be holding you back. It's definitely the case that the more you participate, the more you will gain from those tutor calls. But after tutor call 3, you'll then be ready to sit your mock exams, and that really gives you a good sense of whether or not you're ready to perform to the necessary standard in the real exams. And then after the 4th tutor call, you'll then have, after your mocks, you'll then have your fourth tutor call, where you will get that one-to-one support, a 30-minute call with your personal tutor, where you can discuss your mocks, you can discuss any concerns you have, and you will be able to make sure that you've got everything in place ready for the real exams. They're really helpful tutor calls, especially the one-to-one with your personal coach. And it really gets you to focus on what you can do in the final days or weeks before the real exams. That call usually falls somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks before the final exams, but that does depend on when you've booked your exams, because you do have a degree of flexibility in terms of spreading them out. So it could therefore mean that your tutor call 4 is very close to your exams, but it will always be before your real exams. So that's the support you'll receive from your personal tutor. But in addition, when you do your various practice assessments, either written or oral, you then get assessed by our extensive team of tutors, all of whom are qualified solicitors or barristers. And that means you have wider access to a greater pool of knowledge and experience, which is particularly helpful when you receive your feedback. So for each assessment that you do, you'll receive written and oral feedback. The oral feedback's in the form of a personal video message from your assessor. And the aim of that oral feedback is to really drill down into the detail of where you can improve your mark before the next practice assessment or mock exam, wherever you're up to in the course. All assessments come with that personal video feedback, so you will always have the comfort of knowing the stage you're at and how close you are to reaching your target of being within that pass zone. But that's not where the support stops. You also have additional support, and although this is an online course, you'll also be invited to attend regular strategy sessions with tutors within the learning team. The strategy sessions are student-led, so that gives you another opportunity to ask questions, seek clarification, and listen to and share experiences that you've had throughout the course. And as you've heard, you'll also be invited to regular self-practice activity workshops. So with the self-practice activities, you do the work yourself, and effectively you mark your own work, but that can be quite daunting sometimes, especially if you're not sure whether you're on the right track. So we have subject matter experts who deliver those SPA workshops, and you'll be able to ask them any questions. You'll be able to learn and check that you've marked your work correctly, and you'll be able to understand what you need to do to improve if necessary. And also you'll get an exemplar to show you what an acceptable answer would look like. Now, the feedback that we get from these workshops is always extremely positive, because I guess it just gives you that certainty that you're on the right track and you've effectively marked your own work correctly. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into the tutor support and the wider support that you get from the learning team on the SQE2 course. But I am here to answer any questions if anybody has anything they want to ask me.
Great, thank you, Joanne. What we'll do is we'll hold questions towards the end, because we've got a very special guest for you all today. And that is Charity. She is an alumni of SQE2, and Halimat will be taking her through an interview just so you can all gain more of an insight into what it is being a student on the Barbary SQE2 Prep course. Thank you.
Hi, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm just gonna begin by asking Charity the very first question, which is quite obvious. Could you just tell us a little bit about why you decided to choose Barbary for your SQE2 preparation course? You're muted.
Apologies. I'll start again. So I decided to use Barbary because I'd already used them for my New York bar qualification, and I'd found them to be very insightful, resourceful, and helpful. So I didn't want to go with anybody else. That's why I decided to continue. And also I used them for the Qualified Lawyer Transfer Scheme, which has since been replaced by the SQE1 and 2. I passed my multiple choice exam with them. Unfortunately, I failed the OSCE, so I resat under the SQE2. So it was a natural choice for me to go with Barbary.
Thank you very much for that. And what would you say you liked or disliked about the SQE2 Prep course?
Sure. So I didn't want to leave anything out, so I made quite a lot of bullet points so that hopefully they can be helpful to make to give you the chance to make an informed choice. So I like the workbook. So Barbary provides the subject workbooks. Besides there's a workbook that they do for the course, guiding you how to answer certain aspects of the different assessments that have already been mentioned. But Barbary also has the workbooks for the subject areas like tort, land law, wills and estates, etc. So you can reference them when you're doing your assessments, or just to keep the knowledge fresh at the top of your head, because legal knowledge is still important to be able to ace these exams. I also like the legal research aspect of the course, which is much different to when under the OSCE, you had to do the legal research yourself using Westlaw and all the other research tools. But this time you're given the answers, and some of them are relevant, some are irrelevant. So it simplifies the process for you, really. And because also you have to, manage your time in the exam. And also the other amazing thing about Barbary is the access to the SQE1 materials, which you will have throughout the course, the duration of the course. So I didn't do the SQE1 because I passed the multiple choice aspect of the now phased out Qualified Lawyer Transfer Scheme. So the knowledge is really, technically the same, but still it was good for me to have access to the SQE1 materials. And the good thing actually as well is that it was available prior to me starting the course. So it was uploaded and access was there. Once you've enrolled, there was like almost a few weeks before the actual course started. So I had enough time to review and go through that material to get myself ready. And also the precedent forms that Barbary provides as part of the course, because drafting, as you know, is going to be one of the assessments in the exam. And Barbary provides you with a library of them. There's just so many, so you can practice and familiarize yourself with the different forms that, you will be provided in the assessment. And also Barbary does the tutors do these summaries for the advocacy. So for the different advocacy for criminal and civil, so there's different tests that you have to master. So the videos, the tutor sort of talks you through, the different stages. So you need to argue this, and then it makes it clear in your mind so that you picture yourself while you're in the assessment that this is what I need to do to prove that I know what I'm talking about and to score the high marks. And also there's also summary of the advocacy test. So when you're getting towards the revision stage, the preparation, because you're not going to be reading the subject books cover to cover, you're going to need a condensed version. So this, for the oral assessment, Barbary does this amazing table telling you, the different tests, for example, for civil litigation and also for criminal, the different tests. And so if you master those, it will help you in the exam because it's just sort of simplified for you. And I just the final point, I guess, is, which has already been mentioned, the sample answers for the questions. Obviously, looking at those, it sort of helps you to know where you need to improve, and it's broken down in such a granular level that it's easy for you to absorb the information. So that's what I found quite helpful.
Thank you very much for that, Charity. You mentioned earlier that you did the QLTS. Yes. Could you tell us a bit about the differences between the SQE2 and your QLTS?
Okay. So again, so the QLTS, which was the Qualified Lawyer Transfer Scheme, was because I qualified in the New York jurisdiction before the UK. So prior to the introduction of the SQE2, you had to, as I mentioned earlier, you had to do the legal research aspect of the assessment. you had, as in the assessment itself, you had to go on to Westlaw and all the other research websites to find the information yourself and then copy and paste it into, the question, the form that you've given to answer the question. But now, under the SQE2, they've simplified that. So you don't have to do the research yourself. You just need to understand the question, which is broken down for you to know what you're being asked. And then you are given like 6, 7 answers, documents to look at. So some of them are irrelevant. Once you establish, what you're being asked, you will quickly know which ones are irrelevant, and you just ignore those, and you just focus on extracting the information from the ones which contain the relevant information. Another difference is that under the OSCE, which was the version of what's now the SQE2, there were 18 assessments. The business, which included the business module under the oral aspect of the assessment. However, under the SQE2, there's 16 assessments, and the business module is not included in the oral assessments or the interview and attendance. So that's another difference. And then also another helpful thing is that the oral and the written assessments are staggered, whereas under the QLTS, the 18 assessments were done over a 6-day period, back to back. So that's quite draining mentally. But for the SQE2, the oral assessments are done first, and then there's a gap. I had like a week before I did the written assessments. So you get time to breathe and then brush up on this, the revision, the last bits of revision for the written aspect of the assessment. And also the other difference is that the final difference is that they introduced what's called the case and matter analysis under SQE2, which was not under the QLTS OSCE assessment. So if you've done a law degree or a GDL, that's just akin to like a problem question, basically. And they break down the questions to guide you as to what they're actually asking you. Yeah, so those are the main differences.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And could you just tell us a little bit more about the support you got from Barbary?
Sure. So there was the tutor support, and as already been mentioned, under the SQE2, it's done in a group setting because so you can have discussions with other students, and because you give each other tips to say, well, this is how I'd manage this, how I'd manage that, and then the tutor sort of also guides you to say, improve this way. So for example, my tutor was Daniel Hill. I had him as well when I did the OSCE. So I had already had a relationship with him. And so they sort of give you tips how to manage, not just the assessment, but also your mental health, because these assessments are testing your mental agility. So they give you, for example, Daniel would give you advice on how to manage and take time out. And if you feel like you're behind, what to do, and just tips on how to manage certain aspects of the assessment. Because I think everyone will find, unless you're one of the geniuses, there are certain aspects of the assessment that you think, oh, I'm a bit weak in this area. So how do I manage this? And, the tutors are very good because they know how to support you so that you can build your confidence in your weak areas. And also I think the other support, which I felt was good, like when you get the feedback, which was mentioned before for the practice feedback assessments, or it breaks down where, in granular level to say, if you structure it like this, or you need to answer like this, so that you improve the way you structure your assessments in preparation for the actual exam. So I found that to be quite helpful as well.
Oh, that's all great. Thank you. I think that brings me to my final question. What would you say is your advice for the other students that are starting the SQE2 or looking to sit the SQE2 exams?
Sure. So I thought about this, and there's quite a bit, so I don't leave anything out. So the first thing I'd say is, if you're going to sign up for the course, the law matters. So I think the mistake people make is that, because there's the oral aspect, but you are also marked on the black letter law that you got from your law degree or your GDL, the LPC, all that still matters. So remember that. So you need to master the law. And so how you do this, like I mentioned earlier on, there's the Barbary workbooks, the subject workbooks, which are very good, the way they are structured, and you're given examples on how to, what you need to think of in an assessment, etc. So read those, throughout, and master the tests, because the test, for the oral part of the exam, the advocacy and for civil and criminal, master those tests as you go, because if you leave it until last minute, that's where the pressure comes and people start to panic. If you do it gradually and just intensify towards the end, that's the better way to do it. And it's also good for your mental health because you're more relaxed and you can navigate your way around the assessment. Always review the feedback. I think the temptation is when you've done a practice feedback assessment, you just look at the grade and think, oh, okay, but actually look at what the tutor is saying, to say you could think about this, think about that. And the other thing I used to do was to redo the assessments. Once they've been returned to me, I would redo them at that time. And if you just get into the habit of doing that, it becomes second nature. Again, you're perfecting the law so that as the time is moving and you're reviewing the workbooks, it just like sticks to you, and you will sort of reference the book less and less, the workbooks, so that the law is ingrained in your brain. And also try and do this under timed conditions, because people like to wait until like 2 weeks before the exam to start timing themselves. Time yourself before, make it like second nature, because then you would be at the speed that you want to be and be able to manage the time. And I also mentioned that I also made a note that you should review particular. So when you're given a practice feedback assessment, for example, you will know. So, for example, for the administration of will and estates, the question might be on a certain topic. So when you understand what you're being asked, put the question down, open your subject workbook, review that particular area of the subject, of the topic you're being asked, then attempt to answer. Because again, that's another way of mastering the law and perfecting your answer. And also, I think I'd also like to give credit. So Tracy Savage is so good at, in terms of the business, because for example, in business, in drafting, you're always going to be asked to draft board minutes most of the time. And so sometimes people struggle with how do you structure that? Because for example, in my exam, sometimes the precedent you're given is blank. Sometimes you might get the first couple of lines, or sometimes if someone is generous, they've sort of given you half of the precedent is completed. But for my exam, there was literally nothing. So in my head, I kept listening to Tracy Savage has got this amazing recording where she sort of talks you through to say, and then they adjourned, and then because people get confused as to, it was resolved that it was, once you get to listen to that video, it helped me in my assessment for business, and I did quite well. So that's the other advice that I'd give.
Thank you so much, Charity. Everything you've said so far has been very insightful, and I'm sure all those on the call as well would agree. So yeah, thank you for that. I think that brings me to the end of my questions. I would hand it back over to Shashige.
Thank you, Halima. And thank you to Charity as well. That was really insightful, especially from a student's perspective, how they've gone through the course and how it's been able to benefit her and get her to that end goal of sitting at SQE2 exams. So I would like to say a special thank you. So at this moment in time, we're going to move on to our Q&A. So that's where you can ask any questions to anybody who's spoken today, whether that be Joanne, Meg, Charity, Halima, or myself, Shashige. Please go ahead and answer questions. You can also turn your mics on or just pop it in the chat function, and then we'll pick it up from there as well.
Okay, so there's some of the questions that have come in on our Q&A. One here says, if we feel that we're not ready for the real exams, having done the mock exams, do we still receive support and have access to the models for further preparation for the real exams? And I think I would direct this to Joanne, if you would be able to respond to this student.
Yeah, sure. No, you lose access to the course once the exams are over. And so I think it's really important to look ahead and consider whether you will be ready. You have the clear space ahead of you to be able to fully prepare for the exams. by the time you get to the mocks and you've had your tutor call 4, you'll be in a really good position to know that. But in order to get your Barbary guarantee, you would still have to sit the exam. You don't get unlimited access. So no, you would have to make sure that you were ready. But you know, in reality, what happens is when people fully engage in the course and they do all the SPAs and they do all the PFAs and they do the mock, they are ready for the exam. And so I think your biggest consideration is look ahead, whether it's 5 months on the 20-week course or whichever course you're choosing to do, and make sure there are no huge life events in that period so that you can fully focus for the duration of the course, and you will be ready if you fully engage.
Thank you very much, Joanne. I would go to the next question, which is asking about what the success rate is for SQE2 at Barbary, which students were sitting for the SQE2 for the first time. And I would direct that to Shashige, please.
Thank you, Halima. So Barbary's pass rate for SQE2 is 83% compared to a 77% of those students who sat the exam overall. So I'm hoping that addressed your question. And then if you do have any other questions, do just drop it back in the chat.
Yeah, thank you for that. The next question is asking, the booking window for the SQE2 opens on the 29th of March, and in previous years it was a challenge to secure a place. Barbary encouraged an email sent about the SQE2 to join the course only after booking the exams. However, with your current deadline of 24th of March, it is no longer possible. Could you please clarify? And I will direct this to Megan, please, to address the student questions.
Yeah, so you can enroll, like I say, you can enroll anytime on the course, and also the booking window is separate to our enrollment period. There was issues with students enrolling, booking their exams, but it is kind of like a ticket basis. So if you aren't successful on your first attempt at booking your exam, you should keep trying, because as students cancel their exams, there are spaces available. And also they did last time open some extra dates for some of the oral exams, so I would just say keep trying, but unfortunately it's not something that we can really monitor for you, although we would like to have more input on that.
Yes, thank you for that, Megan. I can see there are a couple of questions here that are directed to Charity, so we'll just ask them one after the other. The first one is asking could you be asked to draft any kind of document in the subject areas?
I think from my understanding, if I'm understanding the question correctly, so drafting, yes, so drafting is in all the subject areas, but they pick and choose. So for example, for business, it's definitely, because business is standalone, so definitely you will be asked to draft in that. But it could either be, so they mix either, so probate or property, I think, probate and property. So it's either, so if it's for business, you definitely have to do drafting. You will either be asked to draft in probate or property. It can't be both. And then the other two is civil and criminal. So again, you'll only be asked to draft in either one of the subject areas. So it's not going to be across 5 subject areas, it's across 3. And what was the other question?
The other question is basically asking if they could reach out to you for further advice and guidance. No
problem, yes. I don't know, my full name is Charity Mafuba. So if you just find me on LinkedIn and DM me, and then we can just maybe email each other from there. But if you find me on LinkedIn first, and then I'm happy to help as best as I can.
All right, thank you, Charity. Someone here is asking, are the SQE2 candidates required to know the legal content or black letter law in the same level of detail and specificity as the SQE1? And I would direct this to Charity as well, as she's gone through the examinations, and she would let you know what she thinks.
Yes, thank you. So yes, so remember when I was saying giving advice, in terms of what advice I'd give, the black letter law matters, yes. So for most of you, I think you will have done law degrees, but some people might not have. So some people might have gotten introduced at SQE1. So that knowledge that you got, it still matters. So keep that, don't lose that. And for those who, like me, didn't need to do the SQE1, from the law degree, the LPC and the GDL, that law still matters. So for example, in criminal law, you could be asked to write someone got injured. So it could be talking about battery, arson, all of those. You need to know what are the elements of those underlying crimes as well. So yes, black letter law matters. You definitely need to know that, because if you don't, that will not be good for your assessment, because it's both oral and written.
Thank you for that clarification, Charity. Someone asked if we can do a 30-second rundown through the delivery method of the course, as they had some technical issues, and I would address that this webinar is being recorded, and you'll be sent both the slides and the recording after the webinar, so you can be able to listen to this during your free time to hear the full detailed delivery method of our course prep. Okay. In relation to the exams, is there any way we can get extra time or allowance for the learning disabilities like you can get for undergrad programs? Yes, you can get this. However, you'd have to apply to the SRA directly for that, and they would give you more information on that. The next question asks, how do I brush up for SQE2 from the SQE1 books I have before I begin my SQE2 preps officially with Barbary? And I would direct this to Shashige if she can give insights on this.
Thank you. So at the beginning of your SQE2 prep course, there is a diagnostic test that you can take. So that will give you an insight into where your understanding of the law is currently, and it will identify points where you maybe need to readdress or brush up on. So that's how best to approach the SQE1 knowledge and before heading into your SQE2. So I definitely suggest taking the diagnostic test first, so it will direct you to which or what topics you need to readdress before approaching your SQE2. And just so everybody is aware, with our SQE2 prep courses, we do allow early access to the SQE1 materials a month in advance. So if you wanted to enroll early, you can do so. Take that diagnostic test and really focus your attention on those areas that are identified. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next question here is asking if the seats for the SQE1 exams in July 2023, will they be eligible to sit the SQE2 exams in January 2024? For starters, I'll clarify that the SQE2 exams as of right now, they take place in April, July, and October. There are no sittings in January as of right now. And if you sit your exams in July of 2023, you would have to wait for your results to be released first. And that's the only requirement for you to be eligible to sit for the SQE2 afterwards. So once you've passed your SQE1 exams, you can then choose whichever sitting afterwards to sit for your exams, essentially.
If you don't mind, I'll just pick up on that as well. So of 2024, there will be a January sitting for the SQE2, just so everybody's aware.
And the results for the also jump in. The results for the July SQE1 are due to come out on the 31st of August. So you would have time to join the 10-week prep course for January 24, which begins in October. So I think that's maybe where the October is coming there. So there you go.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you for the clarification. And the next question on here is asking regarding the Barbary guarantee. Will the course material and access to Barbary materials be extended to you to resit? And I think Megan could please respond to this question about the guarantee.
Yeah, so the guarantee is the same as an original course. So like Joe said earlier, it does run for the set time. So it runs for the 20 weeks or the 10 weeks right up until the exam date. So you would have to be specific about what course you wish to join and when you wish to sit your exam, and your guarantee will run for that amount of time. It doesn't just keep refreshing. It is for one set course, and you can only use your Barbary guarantee once. So as we've mentioned a few times on this call, just remember to commit and do all the preparation, and then you'll be ready for your exam.
Thank you for that, Megan. Someone has another question directed at Charity, and I believe this student is asking, realistically, how many hours would you say you spent particularly studying for your SQE2 in one day?
So speaking for myself, I was working full-time as well when I was studying for the SQE2. I was working remotely, so I'd finish work at 5. And then, so some of you are working, some of you have children, have other commitments. So I finish work at 5. I'd take 2 hours break, then from 7 p.m. until midnight. So I used to do 5 hours or sometimes 6, because like I said, after doing the, because you've got the your timetable or where you get your allocated tasks, I would do the tasks for the day, and then I would review the workbook just so I can stay on top of the law. So, or if you can do 3 hours, I mean, I was a bit manic about it because I had failed and I didn't want to fail again. So I was making sure. So 3 hours, Monday to Friday in the evening. And then at the weekends, that's just me. I would then do maybe about 10 hours. So I'd say I did about 20 to 25 hours, but you don't have to do that much. If you can do at least 3 hours during the week, and at the weekend maybe do 5 hours each, that's fine.
Thank you very much for that, Charity. We have someone asking a question which I'll direct to Joanne, basically inquiring how the assessment is done for the SQE2, and if they fail one of their skills, or either the oral skills or the written skills, do they have to resit every single one of them, or would they only have to resit the oral skills alone?
Okay, so in SQE2, you are assessed in 16 different assessments, and you are marked in each one according to the assessment criteria for that task. And that's easy enough to find on the SRA website. That mark comes from an average of your score in law and your skill. So that means that if you are not great, for example, in your law, but you're fantastic in the skill, then overall you could still pass that individual assessment. Then they add up all the 16 assessments. And if that score reaches what they set as their pass mark, then you have passed SQE2. But if you haven't passed SQE2, then unfortunately you have to do all 16 assessments again when you resit. So you don't just redo the ones that you fail.
Thank you, Joanne. And I believe those are all the questions that I've seen. The other questions that are on here are kind of repetitive of the questions that has been asked before regarding time that you could spend. And I think this basically boils down to your current circumstances and how much hours you can dedicate towards your studies as well. We do have the recommended time of 10 to 15 hours for the part-time 20-week SQE2 prep course. But for those inquiring about how much extra time they will need to dedicate for their SQE1 materials, there's a reason why we do allow early access into the SQE1 materials before your SQE2 prep course starts. But for those who would enroll after the course start date, you would have to just dedicate more hours compared to what has initially been recommended, as the recommended time is just for your SQE2 course content. So it will be up to you to determine how many more hours you can dedicate to your SQE1 course materials and how much refresher essentially that you need towards those materials.
Great, thank you, Halima. And I would like to once again thank Joanne, Charity, and Megan as well for contributing to our webinar and our Q&A today. And nonetheless, I would like to thank all of you for attending. Thank you very much for taking out your time, taking time out of your schedule to learn more about our SQE2 prep course and how we can assist you in preparing effectively for your SQE2 exams. Thank you very much once again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Please feel free to reach out to us at any of the information on the screen currently. You can get in contact with Barbary, as well as if you have any sales questions or any questions about the course, do feel free to email global@barbary.com. Thank you very much.